So yes, Kevin started today's off with a question as to why the sharks are trying to kill us, and
when did we ever do them? We've given them their own television show.
that's really true. The whole week, actually.
They get a whole week. That's exactly right. And we celebrate. We celebrate them.
One of the best movies ever made was about a shark. I'm convinced that the sharks are working for ISIS, Kevin.
Oh, you are? Okay. Well, the guy there lost his mojo, the one we saw the video yesterday, because they can't even call that a shark attack because there's actually rules for, and that has to be called an encounter because that shark didn't try to bite the board or the human. So
you guys have a link on this? A link on this I could show people.
Put Australian surfer.
Shark.
It was on live television. It's a shark encounter, not an attack, an encounter on live television during a surfing competition.
It sounds like a Match.com sort of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll tell you. Go ahead, Kevin.
I was just going to say, I was watching the CNN a version of it, and they had an expert on it, and he was detailing that it really was bizarre because it's almost like the shark screwed up. The shark kind of came in and wasn't sure what he was looking at and got confused, and because of that, he or she didn't do anything. He just kind of came up, and it was like he was on an exploration mission. So
the shark didn't. Go ahead.
Sometimes they do mistake, humans for bait, and a lot of times that kind of thing could happen. But there are some scientific things too, right? I mean, the water's warmer. They're losing some of their habitat. Their sonar is a little more off than it used to, and we're also finding out now, which I guess we didn't even know for like the last 100-something years, that they swim a lot closer to shore than we ever knew. It's just now we're looking at it via helicopter and all these different ways, and we're like, whoa, wait a minute, they were always close. So that's something else that we're just sort of finding out.
So is it like Concussions? We just have better reporting.
Yeah.
It's exactly like that. It absolutely is.
Yeah.
The shark choked. That's what he did.
All right, here the shark choked. All right, here's the video of it, guys. This is what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Oh man, holy cow!
Now, as you're watching that, keep in mind this was a live television surfing competition, and people saw that. His mother was watching live from Australia, and
whoa!
What's for brunch?
Oh my God!
Apparently, he punched it a couple of times.
Yeah, that's what he said. He punched it, hit it with his board. That's awesome. I mean, to go to battle a shark, that's gutsy. I like that. That's huge.
Yeah.
That was funny because it was just the last week, 2 weeks ago, we were in Margate, New Jersey, and where I saw your buddy, Kevin Steve. And about a couple hours after I saw him, I was walking down the beach with my son, and we looked, and sometimes you see dolphins off the Jersey Shore this time of year, and they're really cool looking. And so we saw a fin come up, and we really thought, that's why I thought it was a dolphin. So as I see this fin, I'm looking out, and then I noticed that two of the lifeguard boats are streaming at full speed towards these dolphins, and which is rare. So the guys jump on the push the boat in, they jump in, they're doing their whole thing. Really impressive. They get out there, and then they see the dolphin come up again, except this time the fin does this. It goes up like this and then does a right angle turn, which is something you would never see a dolphin do. A dolphin would never turn on a dime like that. Dolphins just could come up and go forward. So I'm like, whoa, hold on, that's not a dolphin. And there have been a lot of reports of shark attacks in New Jersey. The shore was closed for a while there, wasn't it, Russ?
Yeah, and also the one in Massachusetts was like the first time in 80-something years. But again, if you watch like Shark Week, you realize now that we have new cameras and we got all this other technology, we're realizing, they're a lot closer more often than we knew.
Oh yeah. Well, my father-in-law flies small. My father-in-law flies small planes. And he says if you take the plane up, down, past the Cape May Point and right up the coast, if you fly low enough, you can easily see these sharks because they're much easier to see from the water's very clear this time of year from above, and when they're near the shore, that's the best place to view them. So as the day went on, after we saw that shark being chased away, essentially, every lifeguard stand had two lifeguards beyond where the people were swimming in a boat. So there was guys swimming and then the lifeguards in a boat. To which you think to yourself, there's nothing these guys can do in a boat. to protect it.
They could take their big oars and swing at them. I mean,
yeah, but this shark, but by the time a shark gets to a person, it's too late. I mean, this boat's not scaring the shark off.
If I were Richard Dreyfuss, I wouldn't go anywhere near the water.
Yeah, no.
You're supposed to hit him in the eye. That's your one shot. You punch him in the eye. That's a weakness of theirs.
I heard you're supposed to reason with them. Just, I'm from that school of parenting. We never hit our kids. We reason with them. So, listen, I'm really not that tasty. I'm kind of fatty and full of gunk. You don't want me. I'm a horrible meal. That would be reasoning with the. But yeah, these. Oh my gosh, they are. And it's frightening because your kids you're always saying since we've been taking our kids, there's no sharks in the water. Don't worry. Whenever they feel anything, it's not a shark. Don't worry about it. Now, of course, you can't really say that.
I'll tell you, if you're any, I'm sure some people are watching the television series Zoo, but I read the book during the playoffs. Just when I'm on an airplane, I like to literally devour a novel.
Yeah.
And James Patterson's Zoo I read, and you will never think of dolphins the same again if you read that novel. Because one of the, basically the premise of the book, and I'm not going to give it away, but I think everybody kind of understands the premise, is that mammals kind of go crazy and they kind of all work together to go after the humans. That's sort of the premise of the book. And
so wait a minute, they were nice in Day of the Dolphin. Now you're telling me they've taken a heel turn?
Well, let me just tell you that the Dolphins have joined forces with the dogs and the wolves and everyone else. And the way the Dolphins did their bit against humanity, and this was just so clever. I wanted to send an email to the writer saying this was way clever. Basically, you have fishermen out fishing out on the ocean. And the guys just kind of drifting along, and they see a dolphin. They're jumping. There's a bunch of them, and they're excited. They just like Eck. They like the dolphin, so they were watching, and as they were all jumping, one of them jumped right on the boat, and the guy said, "Oh man," he said, "this is we got to help get this dolphin off." So two of the three guys ran over, and they're trying to push this dolphin off their boat. Meanwhile, another dolphin lands on the boat, and a third, and a fourth, and a fifth. Next thing you know, their boat is full of dolphins, and of course we know what happened. It tips the boat, and all the fishermen drown. So these sweet dolphins, a bunch of good flippers, murdered these three fishermen in this book, and I will never be able to think of dolphins the same ever again because of that book.
Russ, a heel turn? What is this? Triple H in the WWE? I mean, what
essentially, yeah.
No,
I'm not even aware of this TV series nor this book until now. I was looking at it as you talk about it, Kevin, online. Wow.
Well, go ahead, Kevin.
Well, the TV series is nothing like the book. I'm actually watching the TV series. It's not exactly HBO, but
right.
But it's different enough from the book that. That I'm mildly entertaining. It's the summer, for God's sakes. You're just looking to kill four.
Well, if you remember, I think
about that.
Jaws was in '75, I believe, and it was either in '76 or '77. They tried to do another Jaws, and it wasn't a sequel. They tried to do with remember Orca? It was the killer whale.
Yeah.
With Richard Harris, where Richard Harris was like a whale hunter, and he kills the whale's mother. Or something like that, and now this killer whale is stalking Richard Harris. I mean, it's the most ridiculous movie ever made. But now that sort of reminds me of what you're talking about, Kevin, because now all of a sudden these docile dolphins are going out trying to assassinate.
I swam with the dolphin last summer in Florida. It was fantastic.
Well, that was a nice dolphin. There's obviously bad dolphins out there, like anything else.
There are obviously bad dolphins. That's well put, Russ.
There's always a bad dolphin out there.
There are bad dolphins out there. We can't cast them all in the same group.
Gangs of dolphins.
Yeah, I mean, we started this conversation with me asking why the the sharks want to kill us, but in that book, it was the dolphins who wanted to kill us, and dogs and cats and
mass hysteria.
Oh man, it comes back to Jurassic World. It sounds like a Jurassic World type concept. Like I saw Jurassic World the other day, and my gosh, there's nothing that scares me more than the Jurassic movies. I mean, yeah. I'm a weakling when it comes to the Jurassic World. Like Jurassic Park, I walked out on when I was a teenager, because I was too scared. I'm just a wimp when it comes to this stuff. So I'm watching this thing, and my whole thing that got me over Jurassic Park fear was the concept that the dinosaurs aren't evil. They're just hungry. They're just trying to eat you. They're not evil. They're just hungry. So that makes it. If you
They're
look
also not around.
right, if you look at dinosaurs that way, in the movies they're not so scary. Except in Jurassic World, it turns out that it's just a badass dinosaur they created, right? So he does want to just kill you. So at that point, forget it.
I'm not guessing you can reason with the Velociraptor either.
No.
No.
But the suspense wasn't as good as the first one, but it still was very good. Like the CGI is unbelievable.
The CGI is incredible. The first one was so
never
much
really understood the idea of paying good money to have the heebie-jeebies scared out of it. I mean, like I'm not into that. Like I don't go to horror movies. You know.
Kevin, I worked at a movie theater for a decade. Those movies are the ones that draw the most crowds. If it's a good, and not even horror flick, but like a movie like Aliens, the sequel to Alien, that movie drew so much for so long because it had people jumping out of their seats. It's just people want to be scared, I guess.
No, they do. I mean, I watched Close Encounters of the Third Kind the other day with my son who had never seen it, and I didn't watch it, and it's really not a good movie.
It's not scary. No.
I mean, it's really, really slow, and I mean, for the time period, of course, the stuff is amazing, the spaceship and everything, but movie-wise and plot-wise,
it tried to be cerebral. That's what it did. It tried to sort of be cerebral.
There are some really weird, long scenes in Close Encounters of the Third Kind that aren't.
I'm almost sure that Spielberg described Close Encounters as sort of his like art movie, like after doing Jaws, which was sort of like one of those popcorn kids movies.
Yeah.
He wanted to do something artful, and that was it. And to me, it's never been one of my favorite movies. So there you go.
Speaking of this, before we get into the hockey, and I love this talk that we're having. This is awesome. But before we get into this, last night my son wanted to watch Howard the Duck.
Oh no! Why?
All right, talk about the most bizarre movies of all time. And what's really weird is the odd sexual overtones in Howard the Duck between Howard the Duck and Leah Thompson that I can't imagine Leah Thompson could have possibly dealt with. I can't imagine an actress doing what she did. I mean, not that there's nothing that happens between Leah and the Duck, but there's all these implications, and
that's the thing. That's the thing with a lot of these cartoon movies. They try to sneak in sort of adult humor.
This wasn't snuck in at all. This was like she was crawling in her underwear across the bed in front of you.
Oh, I know. And
talking about, and the duck saying, "Well, you've never tried anything until you've tried a duck." And my son's next to me, and he's like, "Dad, this is oddly strange." I'm like, I don't remember this scene, but the weird thing is Howard the Duck is not CGI. It's just a guy in a duck suit.
Yeah.
And it's completely, it's like a little mascot,
Might be the worst movie ever. It's really up there.
And it's a Marvel thing. That's the crazy thing about it. He's actually a Marvel superhero, Howard the Duck.
Right.
I don't think he'll be in the next Avengers.
No, they destroyed that. That was awful.
It was so bad. We couldn't even get through it. We literally had to stop it. It got to a point where we just said, this idea of a walking tiny mascot being angry at everything because he's thrown from his planet, and then trying to seduce Leah Thompson, who just recently had just gotten off doing the Back to the Future movies, which were really big. She must have been a star. How she ever let herself do this?
I think it was actually before.
Was it before?
Sure.
Yeah, I don't remember. I don't know the time.
Maybe that makes some sense. If it was before, then talk about it. If you ever think that your career is dead and you don't think you can revitalize it, Leah Thompson did Back to the Future after Howard the Duck. I mean, that's all you can have to say. I mean, because there's nothing. There's no way.
I think all of our careers are dead by talking about Howard the Duck.
Right.
Oh yeah. Well, we'll move on. But anyway, let's start the show. We've got a lot to talk about today. Here we go. Today is the 21st of July. Hello, Hockey World. It's Tuesday, July 21, 2015.
I'm Michael Agello.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I'm Kevin Allen from USA Today Sports.
And I'm Eklund, and you're watching the HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes to you Monday through Friday at 1 p.m. to discuss your hockey needs. It's usually with Mike and I, and lately it's been Mike, Russ, and I a lot, and Kevin. And to me, this is the all-star group. Nothing against anyone else, but this is the all-star team we have here. Sorry, Ty and Dan. But we got the all-star group here. We got everything. We got Russ for your prospect needs. We've got Mike to talk about Toronto, and we've got
Come on.
we have Kevin who is in the Hall of Fame, for crying out loud. And then here we are, and it's funny because I'm listening to the XM this week is playing the Hall of Fame speeches again. So your name's been mentioned a lot, Kevin. You know, when someone goes up there and says, and congratulations to Kevin as well. And thinking how much fun that was, Kevin. I mean, that was such a fun time. That was such a great weekend.
Yeah, it was good, and I've been able to relive it a few times because, like yesterday, for example, I mentioned I did 3 hours of radio as a guest host, and I was with Art Regner, and of course, when he introduces me, he talks about that weekend and going through all that, and so yeah, it's been fun. There's no doubt about it, and the old timers when they see me now too, it's just fun to. They'll joke around about it a little bit as well. So
yeah, it was awesome.
Always good.
I was really impressed by how good the speeches are. I'm not going to throw in too long on this, but they've been playing the speeches like Forsberg's speech and Rob Blake's speech. They were really good.
Rob Blake's speech may be the best off-the-cuff direct speech I have ever seen. I turned around at one point to see if there was a teleprompter because the man had no notes.
Yeah.
And he just spoke, and he told this incredible story about being in a traffic jam on the way to the draft, and how he got out and was, as the family got involved in a fight. I mean, it was just incredible. He brought, and is the first player I can ever remember that brought his family up with him. It's probably happened before. I just didn't recall it, but anyway, I mean, it was incredible. But what a gifted speaker he was, and both Mike Modano and Peter Forsberg were very quiet men. They're very humble guys, and yet both of them, I thought their speeches were, right on the money. So it was, it was great. Like, that happened before. I love to tell this story. Chris Chelios and Gary Suter are just very close friends. Like. Chelios has the greatest respect for Suter. They go way back to their Wisconsin days. And when Suter got in the Hall of Fame, I was there in the interview room, and Chelios was giving him the business, as you do with your close friends, about how he was going to be a disaster as a speaker in giving a speech, because Gary is the quietest guy, and just 25 words for him is a novel. I mean, it's just he just doesn't say much. And Chelios said, "Oh my God," he said, "You're going to bomb. This is going to be horrible." And just really working the gears. And Suter got up there and hit it out of the park. Like, he told the joke, and it just hit right on the mark. And then went in and told stories about him and Chelios at Wisconsin, and it was, one of the better speeches of the night. It was just unbelievably fantastic, and I'm never going to forget that, just because it was. And I kind of wonder, because Chris is so calculating, I think it was his way of trying to relax Suter.
Yeah.
By just giving it to him, saying, "Look, it can't be that bad if I'm willing to step up and kid you about it. So, and maybe it won't be so bad." But Suter was really good. So
that's interesting. It probably was. It probably was his way to relax him, and that's very true in those situations. For sure. I really think that I agree with you that Blake's speech as well. Just it was well crafted. I mean, if Blake wrote that himself, he should look into being a writer, because he crafted it as beautifully. That was the other thing about it. It really had its beginning, middle, end. It had a setup. It was all tied together with the phone calls. He got his most important phone calls in his life. Really cool stuff. All right, let's talk expansion. And that's where we are, because the NHL has updated us on the application process, and it's on the web. It's on NHL.com right now. And to read a little bit of it, it says, as previously announced, the NHL expansion applications were made available to all potential interested applicants on July 6th. Since that date, we have received requests from and responded by sending applications to 16 separate groups of individuals. Okay, so they basically had 16 people who asked for the application, essentially, and these people, he responded to. The deadline for filing the application preceding NHL expansion process was last night. We can confirm that we have received 2 applications, one from Bill Foley in the franchise in Vegas, and one from Quebec, right?
Quebecor,
right? Quebecor for a franchise in Quebec City. So This is they only got 2 applications. They sent out to 16 groups. They only got 2 applications back. And they go on to say that this is why they did this. They wanted to see how realistic these people were, because I think the NHL is inundated with people saying we want to buy a team. I do get that impression. There's groups of players to get together and agents, and this was sort of the way of separating that to a degree, of saying how serious are you? Because I'd love to get my hands on one of these applications. I've been trying to see what why 14 people decided not to respond to it. I wonder what the reasoning was. What do you think, Kevin? You have any ideas?
Well, I mean, I think what happened here is exactly what the league office thought was going to happen. I mean, I don't think there was anything. I mean, some people have made a lot out of the fact it was a $2 million application fee, and like that scared away people. But how could $2 million application scare away people when it's a $500 million buy-in?
Right.
I think these are the 2 cities that everyone had identified as they were closest to being ready. I mean, basically the expansion process sort of spelled out that you had to have an ownership group in place. You had to have an NHL-ready arena. What groups have that?
Yeah, right.
No, nobody does. I mean, obviously some do, but they don't have everything. And I think the process was designed to, as you said, to sort of weed out, cull the herd, and did exactly that. I know coming in, a team official said, I think the expectation is we'll hear from Quebec City and Las Vegas. Well, that's what we have. I mean, we had seen in the newspapers that Seattle didn't have an arena in place. And we knew that Toronto didn't have an arena in place. Well, you can't apply if you don't have an arena in place. So, and those that do have an arena in place, like, I think some people thought maybe you might see a bid from Milwaukee, and but the price is heavy. You gotta really want it.
Yeah, $2 million is a non-refundable deposit, I guess, or
some of it is refundable. I don't know exactly how it works.
But that's still, even coming up with $2 million, and that's a good thing, because that is definitely the case with a lot of these smaller groups, is that they are piling I've got $2 million, you've got $4 million, I've got $10 million, you've got. Right. And I know the NHL doesn't like that. The NHL wants to have single owners, because of what happened with Tampa, before, when they had people bailing at the last minute, remember, and Oren Koulis had to find other investors to help make it work at the last second, and that really messed up the Tampa thing in a big way. So go ahead, Mike.
I sort of perceived what the NHL released as a statement as a smackdown on some of the cities that were rumored to really be interested. I mean, like Seattle, especially Toronto. I mean, in the statement they say at the outset to set realistic guideposts to distinguish between bona fide expressions of interest from those indications of potential interest which were at best merely hopes or aspirations. It's like you can't go out and apply for an expansion team based on hopes and aspirations, and that's what I think, especially Toronto, there is no building. You're not going to get MLS&E to let you play at the Air Canada Centre. So what the hell is what is this about a second team in Toronto? It's a pipe dream, and until it's based more in reality, stop talking about it.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Everybody just talks, and it does get a lot of talk going, and people do try and see where they have these small groups. Hey, let's try and raise awareness and see if we can get something going in the papers, and then maybe we'll be able to raise money. It's almost like some of them do it to sort of raise money. We should be happy, because at the end of the day, there are cities that want hockey teams, and that's good. I mean, there was probably a time where there were cities that didn't want a hockey team. So I think the fact that a lot of these cities even just talked about it is good.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. And I think Mike's comments, I would argue that that's directed more at the media and fans more than the cities themselves, because most of that has been created. The flames have been fanned by the media and, by fan talk. It's really not the municipal leaders. I think oftentimes they respond because there are constituents who, push them on. Someone gets but Seattle, most of those guys out there that have dealt with it have been realistic from the very beginning. The first guy wanted an NBA franchise more than he wanted an NHL franchise, and there's really never been a real good arena plan out there. And that's paramount. I mean, that's why Las Vegas looked good right from the beginning, because they had an arena in place that had been built with the idea of attracting an NHL team, and I think that's what made it, and the fact that they had Foley, who was a very rich man, and the Maloofs, and it was sort of a new market, and not everybody sold on it, but to me, I don't think there's ever going to be any issue there. I think the only issue you'll ever have with Las Vegas is whether or not the tickets will ever be used. I think the tickets will always be bought.
Right.
Just a question of whether they'll be used.
And just like Seattle, I think is realistic if it's in concert with an NBA team going in there to share the building. I think the only way Toronto is ever going to get a second team is if the eventual split of the MLS and E ownership group happens, where Bell goes one direction, Rogers goes the other. One team, one company takes the Leafs over, and the other one takes the either expansion or a transplanted team. Then you could have a second team playing in the Air Canada Centre for a couple years while they build the building, and then it could be realistic. But right now, an expansion team and a second building being built without a commitment in Toronto is not happening. It's always been a pipe dream, and hopefully we won't hear about it for a little while until it's a little more realistic. But we'll hear about it again.
Yeah, I want to throw my 2 cents on this, because there's a couple things that are really interesting about this press release. And Mike, like you said, first you sort of said, and I will emphasize more so, that the NHL never really in the past has let anyone talk about anything revolving franchises that are possibly coming to the league until it's pretty much done. Like, we've never seen a situation where there's been something like this. This application thing is very different. I mean, when Winnipeg eventually got announced, it wasn't even discussed until it was announced that it was getting a team. Basically that's what was happening. And the NHL has always been very hard on people who are trying to put teams together and don't let anything slip out. And if something slips out, it's going to hurt you. I mean, this all goes back to the Balsillie era mainly, that they really, that Jim Balsillie was out there doing stuff behind their back, and they didn't like that. They told people that you couldn't sell to Jim Balsillie at one point, from what the rumors say. So the whole thing was kind of crazy, and I think the NHL putting this out early emphasizes maybe my other point, is I think the NHL being in Las Vegas is an ego thing for the NHL more than anything else. I don't think it's a good idea. I honestly still believe that the team, like you said, Kevin, they'll sell the tickets, but what will it mean? If you have transient people coming through, and I'm not saying there aren't actual hockey fans in Vegas, because I'm sure there are. I know the area is growing quickly, which I know it is. It's a big area. It's more than just gambling, but still, to have a fan base the NHL. I've always believed that Gary Bettman compares himself to other leagues, not within the NHL itself. So he wants to be in Vegas before baseball, basketball, or football gets to Vegas. And at the end, if Bettman can say that he was the first to put a professional franchise in Vegas, that means something. In the way it looks at competition, and it's not a knock on him. I just think that's the reality of how he sees things. So I feel this feels a little strange to me in that way. A little, cart before the horse to a degree. Either that, or they already know these two teams are the expansion teams, and they're just playing a game with us. To me, it's one or the other. Like, what do you think, Kevin? Any thoughts on that?
Well, I do have plenty of thoughts on that, actually.
Yeah.
I think that it is appealing that they're the first team in Las Vegas, but I think it goes well beyond that. I don't think if they weren't set up already with an arena in place and well-heeled owners, I don't think the NHL would be going there. I don't think they're in a rush to get to Las Vegas. If that was the case, that's already been pushed back a year later than originally, when people were saying there was going to be an expansion team.
Right.
I just think it was circumstances. There was an arena in place that's well built. It's ready for hockey. There's a lot of money in Las Vegas. It's a growing area. I have a friend that just retired to Las Vegas. He's from Michigan. He speaks hockey fluently. I'm sure if there's my friend is there's a lot of other people's friends as well. And I think that they see this as a way to have a natural rival for Arizona. Again, you're starting to get a pretty strong corner in that area out there with the two teams in Los Angeles. So I think there's a lot of pluses to go there. And what we now know is I think there was a possibility in their mind, they felt, the NHL, that maybe there'd be an extra team that they weren't, like, I think they knew Quebec City and Las Vegas were the favorites right from the beginning. And what I see here now is, there was a possibility that maybe somebody would get their act together. Maybe someone at the 11th hour would have an arena plan for Seattle, or that a group, someone would think maybe we could put a team in Milwaukee or Kansas City. If that was the case, then I would say that, as I mentioned before, Quebec City, they know is going to be successful, and so there was a possibility they could have waited on Quebec City. Now what I see, because there's only two, I think we'll just go with Quebec City and Las Vegas, and everyone will be happy. Canadians will be happy, and but I just don't see there's much risk with Vegas. I think it'll be fine. I think it'll be a destination point. I think there'll be a lot of people who will plan vacations around it. I think the optics of it will be fine.
They've sold a lot of season tickets, so that's a good sign. I mean, that's what you want.
There is a little bit different, though, than plunking down $250 deposit and then paying the whole amount. But
that's one hand of blackjack.
Yeah, but I think they like Foley a lot, and I have interviewed him, and I liked him too. He's down to earth, and I think he's going to be interested. I love their plan. They got a lot of named celebrities to be in their I forgot what it's called, but their club. They're going to be on the executive board now. There's 75 of them. There's the Daniel Nagano, the poker player, is involved, and there's a boxer or two, and there's some celebrities, and they've had a good concept. So to me, what I'm more interested in as a fan of the game is, now what I would like to see is, okay, now what are you going to do to set this team up to be successful in a parity league? And it's been my bone of contention, and everybody who's been my avid reader knows that I've been on this hobby horse for a long time. It's so incredibly frustrating as a fan of the game to look at what they do to their expansion teams. When you get an expansion in any other business, like if you buy a McDonald's franchise, they don't say to you, okay, you can open up, but we're going to give you inferior meat to sell. That's the thing. You get the same thing that everybody else does. So if they want to do that, and they want to get this franchise up and going quickly, then they'll say you only get to protect 6 forwards, 4 defensemen, and 1 goalie.
Well, I was going to bring this up, Kevin.
I like that.
The thing that's going to be interesting is, because I think this will be the first expansion in the salary cap era. So I think there's a possibility of players who are quality players, who are not over-the-hill players, being available in an expansion draft based on their cap number. It's almost going to be like a compliance buyout for some of these teams. For example, the New York Rangers could be open to exposing Rick Nash because it clears $7.8 million of cap space. And you telling me that a Vegas or a Quebec wouldn't want Rick Nash at 32 or 33 years old for 2 more years?
Yeah.
I think that's going to be very interesting how they approach that.
Yeah, I think there'll be a certain amount of that. I think that's a really good point. I also think they should do something more for them in the draft, too. Maybe give them an extra first-round pick, a compensatory. I think Kevin makes a good point. You should do something to get them up and running quicker. And, help them out in that first draft, too, because at least in a few years, that'll help them down the line, too.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they'll do that. I think they'll embrace the standard. You get to protect 9 or 10 forwards and 6 defensemen.
Yeah.
But that's what I would do. I mean, you want these teams to be successful, and particularly Vegas. Quebec City, they're going to sell out, but you want Vegas to be a competitive team. So that's what I'd like to see. It's a tough situation, because you're going to lose good players when you do that. But I just think it's the fair way to do it, and you want to be equal partners with these guys, and you want to give them a fighting chance. And all you got to do is look at the history of expansion in the NHL. Other than the Florida Panthers getting to the final in '96, we haven't seen too much success of expansion teams too quickly.
Sure.
Yeah. No, that's really true. Quickly, I mean, well, I guess it depends. Yeah, straight out expansion teams. You're right. I mean, Colorado obviously had success, but they were a moving team.
Well, how bad were Tampa Bay and Ottawa in their first few years? I mean,
oh yeah.
Well, Columbus is a great example. Columbus and Nashville took forever, and they were competitive. And how many years did we hear? Well, that Barry Trotz, man, he's got these boys that are competitive. It's hard to play against. But you know what? They didn't win anything. They were just hard to play against.
Yeah, he just made he had a bunch of third line players and basically a few second liners and made that all work. I mean, and they had great goaltending always.
But I do like Mike's comment, because I think that's accurate, and I think Rick Nash is a great example of that. And there'll be others. There are guys like like if the expansion this year, would Patrick Sharp have been out there?
Yeah. Well, you can put together a pretty good team, and I'm working on this for a blog this week. That of the players that aren't signed yet, and you can actually there's still enough players out there that are pretty solid. I mean, they're not going to win anything, but they could compete against some of the lesser teams in the NHL of the players that aren't signed yet. There's definitely a lot of players out there still. I want to move on to I don't know if you saw this, Russ, but EliteProspects.com. I don't know what your thoughts are on the website in general. We've never discussed it.
Website. No, I use it. I like it. I actually think they're the most accurate for heights and weights of any of the other websites. They actually,
interesting.
HockeyDB just doesn't change them enough.
Interesting. Well, they've decided to add women to their prospects now. And today, one of the first is Erica Graham from Sweden. I think this is an interesting turn. Russ, what are your thoughts?
No, I like it. I mean, again, there's now 2 women's hockey leagues, and so I think that the time has come. I mean, I'm interviewing. I have a few up on Sportsology already. I've got another one coming. I mean, I've probably interviewed 3 or 4 professional women who just signed up for the NWHL this offseason. So I'm happy to see that, and I think we should start to see it ahead of time, because like right now their draft was pretty minimal. It was like, hey, we drafted these players. Probably took a few hours, but at some point it could build to something, and so you have to start somewhere, and I think it's a great start.
I like it too, and I've always really, my daughter's starting to play female, hockey as well, and and then we've seen some really, I don't know that we'll ever see a woman in the NHL, but it's if we do, it'll probably be in goal, although the goalies are getting bigger and bigger and bigger now, so someone told me the other day that's not going to be possible anymore either.
Well, Hillary Knight did practice with Anaheim. I mean,
Yeah. No, it's pretty cool. I mean, it's a very cool thing. I'd love to see more of it. I just thought it was really.
I think Hope Solo is tough enough to be a NHL goaltender.
Yeah, I would say she is too. But I like the way that I like the idea of them doing this. I really thought it was a good one, for sure.
It's a good one, and I'll tell you I interviewed a goalie, and I'll put the interview up probably later today or tomorrow. But, she's 28 years old, and she feels old. Like, it's like one of those things where she's, like, hoping – I could tell she's hoping that if the league does expand and keeps adding teams, that 28 won't be that old. But right now, it's such a new league that most players are coming directly out of college.
Right. And a lot of good ones, And if you're – and I've talked to a lot of people who say, if you want to get a scholarship for your daughter and – hockey's a good way to go right now. That there are actually, plenty of more and more hockey leagues forming all the time. Kevin?
That's true. Hockey is, if you look at the NCAA statistics, is one of the fastest growing sports. To be sure, and elite level play. The biggest difference between women's hockey now and in the early 1990s, like I covered one of the first World Championships in Kitchener years ago, and how far that league has come when. There were players who could barely skate who were playing in the World Championships back then, and now, and most of the players that played had to play in boys' leagues, and now we've evolved to the top players today, didn't they've played against women their entire career, so we haven't had too much. That's not entirely true, but
yeah,
but we've got good women's leagues now for younger players. That's the big difference, and I think and the skating level is just infinitely better.
Oh yeah, you see it for sure, Mike.
No, I agree, and I mean, Russ, I think it's 4 teams that started in the NWHL. I mean, if it has any modicum of success, you're going to see that probably double within a couple of years. This is sort of a test, to see whether it's feasible, whether it'll work. But there are enough women's hockey players out there. I know in Ontario alone, there are tons that I think you could feed an 8-10 team league very easily. So, I mean, we'll see if it works.
Yeah, I mean, Buffalo, Connecticut. I mean, Nicole Stock is the goalie that I interviewed. She's doing the Connecticut team. The big point that she also made is she has a real job, right? So it was good to actually be able to get a team close to her until this league sort of takes off.
Right.
And so, like, that's where they're at right now. It's like these women are very talented, and they're happy that they're able to sign a contract, but it's still not enough to make a living. No. But at least this league gives them sticks, and they may do other things for equipment.
Right.
There's some things that are building there, and it's a respect factor, and why not? I mean, everybody makes such a big deal about the Olympic athletes. When they're playing for the country, it's a big deal, right? All of a sudden they get commercials and endorsements and everything, and then the minute that the shine of the Olympics goes away, then it seems like, well, they're back to, square one, and maybe they're not now, and that's good.
Yeah, I like that. I think that is true. I mean, you definitely see it, and the easiest parallel is women's soccer here in the States. We had a women's soccer league that went under because of bad management. Basically, they got sued and had to go under. Mm-hmm. But they're trying to get that women's league back together, and that would be great. And a lot of the women who we watched in the World Cup playing soccer were playing for professional teams in Europe, women's professional teams in Europe, and that's always been good. So. And I know some of the now that my daughter's in pretty high-level travel soccer, I've seen some of the better travel soccer players in the region go practice with with boys teams, essentially to build up their aggressiveness, because that seems to be the biggest issue is the aggressiveness. Some women soccer players that are really talented aren't aggressive enough to make it to higher levels. It's amazing how aggressive even 12, 13-year-old girls are in soccer. It's a very physical game. And the only way to really practice that is to play with boys teams. It sort of shows off a really big a difference in both leagues. But
I mean, if you ever want a difference, I think it goes to lacrosse, because the girls don't even wear headgear.
Which is absolutely absurd, and I don't want to get into this because I've had fights with my township about that, Russ, and that's why my daughters never play lacrosse, because it's every bit as physical, it's dangerous, and yet they don't wear headgear. They don't even wear gloves.
Right.
Crazy.
And since we're on this soccer conversation, I'll bring this up. I just watched this. I was actually talking to my wife about this. My wife, as Eck knows, was a high school soccer coach for 20 years, now retired. But it was fascinating because, and I wish I could remember the woman's name, but a former U.S. national team player who has had concussion syndrome has been leading one of the leaders in the fight to eliminate heading in girls soccer for 14 and under. And what's interesting about it is that the guy from Boston University brain study group is now joined the cause, and the U.S. Soccer Federation is really fighting this. And one of the things that's just happened, which has sort of changed the landscape a little bit, according to this HBO report that I saw, is that they've gotten some former national team members to sign on for this, including Brandi Chastain. And what makes it interesting is it's not really politically correctness right now to embrace this.
Yeah.
And she has aspirations of being a national team coach someday. So this is risky for her, but she feels it's important enough. And the argument is that the neck muscles in females are not strong enough at that age to support heading. That is causing major damage, and they showed evidence of that with some younger players who are basically having some of the same symptoms that we see at the NHL level, where they need to be in a dark room and they can't concentrate, and they can't watch television and so forth. So when I thought about that when I was watching I wondered where we are on that if that's true in soccer. I wonder if in women's hockey if we have that issue as well. That I mean, I know they're wearing helmets, but I wonder if with the neck muscles not being the issue there, whether or not we would have that in 12, 13, 14-year-old female hockey.
I am so glad that she's doing this. That people are piling on for this, because this is the last thing I'll say about this. But this is it is a huge issue. We've had players miss almost a year. We've had 2 players miss almost a year because of concussions. We played against a team a while ago in a tournament that had to stop the game because 2 of their players got concussions in that game.
Wow.
And they couldn't go on anymore. They basically, one girl was coming off a concussion and rushed back too early. And even if you watch the women's World Cup, all the crazy head injuries that took place when girls were trying to head the ball and women were coming back with their heads being wrapped in bandages playing, they have concussions. I'm sitting there and astonished. I mean, literally, heading in soccer is not about, at least from my experience, it's not about heading the ball. It's about 2 women going up together to head at the same time and them colliding with each other. Even if the rule was only the attacking team can head the ball or something like that, would be better than what it is now, because at this point it's incredibly dangerous. And I had to quit hockey when I was in high school because of concussions. My daughter had to miss time because of concussions, and it's just not it's a terrible idea. So
the concern in women's go ahead, Kevin.
Go ahead, Mike. Go ahead.
I was going to say the concern with women's hockey right now is the fact that what Kevin said about the speed of the game, it's not to the level of men's, but it's getting up there. But the thing is that in women's hockey, hitting is not even close to being as pervasive as it is in men's hockey. So the cause of hits along the boards and center ice hits are, I think, that causing concussions, that would be way down. But it's more the speed created collisions that would be things that would be of concern going forward.
Yeah, well, there's no hitting in women's hockey, but you're absolutely right, Mike. I mean, it is just the collisions and the speed of the game and falling into the boards and so forth. But I was just going to just make a comment on. I'm sure anybody who's watched soccer is as amused as I am on the sprinkling of the holy water when these guys get hurt. My wife and I laugh on it constantly. Like, the guys go down like they've been shot by a .22, and they've ripped every muscle in their body, and they will never play soccer again. And then 2 people come out, and they sprinkle a little water on them to refresh them, and they get up and take off like, all right, now I'm good. And off they go again.
That's one of the reasons I think in America soccer hasn't caught on, because I think that honestly is something that American sports fans think is atrocious.
And absolutely. Yeah, it's hard to watch that. When our players play with broken whatevers, and and they faking injury is an art form.
Yeah. I mean, we have it really is. And I think this is a good transition to the next topic I have, which is the creepiest thing on NHL.com. Somebody sent me this, and it's pretty funny. The creepiest thing you can buy on NHL.com is this. This would be a Sidney Crosby mask in HD. I'll show you a little bit more here so you can get an idea here. This is what it looks like. It's a Sidney Crosby mask that has apparently a hat that you wear, and I can't imagine a situation where this would be allowed or could possibly be worn, even at Halloween. But I just think that this is, for $17.95, you can get a Pittsburgh Penguins Sidney Crosby HD player mask. So I've left the panel speechless.
I mean, I'm reading it because it says you could talk through it, so it's got nose holes and mouth holes. But I don't know. The guy who's modeling it's got really poor posture. That's really.
Yeah, I mean, this is the back view. It looks like this. So
I'm gonna go out on a limb and say this mask will sell a lot more than the Phil Kessel mask.
There surely, actually, that probably is not true, Mike. I bet you a Phil Kessel mask would sell unbelievably well in Toronto, like as an ironic thing, like around Halloween. But Sidney Crosby, had to agree to do this. Nothing against him at all. I have no problem with people doing whatever they want to. But anyway.
You might have a little problem with that.
Yeah. I'm pretty. I don't know. This is a little bit insane, but I just thought I had to show you guys that. We got to really. It's just
whoever called that the creepiest, I agree.
I think it is the creepiest. But actually, it's a close second to this one, which is another one I'm going to show you here, which is the Dallas Stars Facebook cover, and I got this from Reddit. I admit, but this is their Facebook cover, and yeah, looks very awkward. So someone said that this picture, they compared this picture to a bad family photo, as you can see up top there. So here it is. Yeah, this is. I mean, yeah. Sorry, I just have issues with this a little bit too, but it is that time of year, I guess.
Wearing the jerseys, like, why is just Sharp? See, that you're singling him out as the new guy. If you don't want to single him out as the new guy, put everybody in their jersey.
Exactly.
He lost the rock, paper, scissors.
Yeah.
And he's sitting with his arms just like, it really looks like this could have been photoshopped together.
You know what it is? It's like he's like the old uncle, and they're and the younger ones are sitting around him. That's what it reminds me of.
Right.
Silly guys. Yeah.
Yeah.
In my opinion, these people were not together when this picture was taken. Now that I look at it more, they all had pictures taken in front of this white background, and then they just
maybe
put them together because they would feel super. Like, who's this back here? Like in the red shirt. Who's that? That's Any ideas?
No.
It's because it looks like he really looks photoshopped in, doesn't he? I mean, we only see like why is he standing there? Like what?
James Neal, that's who it looks like, but he's not on the team, so I don't know who that
photographer would tell them to stand in this position. Like this doesn't make any sense from many angles. But anyway, it's a July 21st type thing. I get it, but still, very very strange. Yeah, I guess at some point we'll know what's going on, but that definitely comes from Reddit as well. Oh my gosh! Yes. So now this is the other news. This is a rumor that's going around is that the Caps have elected a 1-year deal for Holtby in arbitration. This is something that I've been told by a couple people and is also on Reddit as well. This would return to free agency next summer. He would only be here for 1 year. A 1-year deal for Holtby versus a 2-year deal. I guess the teams can elect before they go into arbitration. Is that correct? Whether to do a 1 or 2-year deal?
Yeah.
Yeah, but arbitrations are always supposed to be about getting the two sides together. So
right.
I still think they could get something together. I mean, that's generally what happens. So I wouldn't read too much into that.
Yeah, but there's a wide gulf in between the two sides. I mean, as there is usually. But I mean, Holtby, his amount was $8 million. Washington offered $5.1. So you're talking $3 million difference. Now they probably meet in the middle, so it's 6.5. That's
but that's what happens in arbitration. That's there's always some that end up going to arbitration, but. For the most part, 95% of them just get settled.
Well, yeah, I mean, Craig Smith went to arbitration. They had the hearing, and then they came out and signed the 5-year deal yesterday. And I mean, $4.25 million for a player who scored 20 goals 2 years in a row. It's not unreasonable, but yeah, let's just say Craig Smith has never struck me as a guy who would make. $4 million. Maybe that's just my problem, and me not evaluating him as a good enough player. But I just thought that the amount was a little excessive. But
well, the Holtby one's kind of far apart right now because it's a difference of like 8.1 and 5.1, which is what the team wants to give him. But they need to get 2 years out of Holtby because Samson's contract it goes through 16-17 in the KHL. So if Holtby's signed to a 1-year deal. They may have a problem in net next year, so they probably want a 2-year deal in the worst way, and then maybe that's his leverage is he's saying, well, I only want a 1, so he can get a better deal out of him.
Well, but the Caps get to choose right here, so they apparently, what I've heard, they've elected for a 1-year deal, but this is what the Caps wanted, which I agree is strange based on all the things you're saying. But perhaps it isn't just a negotiation tactic, like Kevin's saying, where they're going to say, okay, we're playing hardball. We're only going to keep you for a year anyway. The best you're going to get out of this arbitration is 1 year, so you might as well negotiate with us. Maybe that's what's being said here.
Maybe.
Well, it depends on how far he is away from being a UFA. I'm looking it up right now, but I think he's in his 5th year. So that would mean 2 years away from being a UFA.
Yeah, so he's still a restricted free agent next year.
Right. Yeah. If it's 2 years away from being a UFA, they don't want to sign him to a 2-year deal, and then basically he has the opportunity to have the leverage and to walk away if
You don't want to alienate your starting goalie by making him mad.
Right.
I think we shouldn't get too carried away about what's said or how far they are apart and going on. I mean, just going back to Smith, I know Smith pretty well as a player and as a person, and he's a pretty skilled. And I know Russ can speak to this too. He's a pretty skilled guy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so like, I don't know if you get a chance to see him much, but I think this is a pretty reasonable contract for both sides. Like, he's a good player. A skilled player, a guy that's going to play in your top six. So I disagree, just slightly with Mike.
Old guy. I mean, you're gonna and probably got a higher ceiling than that. I mean,
yeah, for sure. I just don't think they have enough quality players to play in their
I think he's been victimized by that, for a lack of a better word. And so I think you're right. I think you can get 25, 28 goals out of him.
Yeah, he is. I just want to make the point to Mike that he's a really skilled player.
He does. He has a real good heavy shot.
When he goes to the World Championships, for example, which he has done on a couple occasions, he's always among the leading scorers because on a wider ice with better players, he looks pretty good.
Yeah. No, I mean he does. I like him too. I'm a fan of his as well. Although this does definitely factor in on the next player the Predators have coming up, who should get more than this. Don't you think, Kev?
Who else do they have coming up?
They have
Colin Wilson.
Yeah, Colin Wilson.
Yeah, but Colin Wilson, he at the end of the year he went like Mike can maybe look it up real quick, but I think he went like 15 games without a goal or something. Like, he has this he played well for a long period of time, and then he went south, and then in the playoffs he picked it up again. So he has this level of inconsistency.
But he's young. He's still a pretty young guy.
Yeah. So I mean, he's a good player, but I think he's a good player, and I'm sure he's part of their long-term future. But if you put a gun to David Poyle's head and say, has he lived up to expectations? I think the answer would be no.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think just shy of that. I think if he became a little bit more of a crease presence, we wouldn't be saying that. He did have 20 goals, but you're right, maybe he didn't have them late. He did have 5 and 6 playoff games, though. I mean, so that is pretty
I said he was very good in the playoffs. I covered that series, and he was very good.
You got to give him that, too. So I think he's a guy that will get a little better in the crease and could be between 20 and 25 most years, but probably get around that 50-point mark. That's where they want to get him. Like 42 points is a little light. So, but again, might just be the talent around him, too.
Kevin, you were dead on. Last 15 games, no goals, and then he scored 4 in the playoffs in 6 games. So
he looked good too. He was a force too. Like in that first game against Chicago, I remember him having just a bundle of shots on goal. Like he was everywhere. It was like he was Keith Kachuk.
Right.
He was such a force.
No, for sure. Finally, today, I wanted to bring out, somebody brought up this point, and I really like this idea. And I want to start the campaign for it now. That we are only 2 years away from the 50th anniversary of the NHL expanding in 1967, right? So we're a couple years away from that, which is really pretty unbelievable.
And 2 years away from the 50th anniversary of the Maple Leafs winning a Stanley Cup.
Correct. So, the fact that in that 1967 expansion draft, Kevin, someone pointed this out to me, that there were, guess how many Hall of Famers were taken in the 1967 expansion draft? How many future Hall of Famers? This is a great number.
Glenn Hall was.
Chuck was, yep.
Chuck. Doug Harvey? Yeah, Doug Harvey played for St. Louis.
I don't think he was taken in the draft though.
Okay.
Looking at now.
Traded.
Was it Bernie Parent in that draft?
Bernie Parent was in that draft, yep. In the expansion draft. The first 3 players taken were Salchuk, Parent, and Glenn Hall.
Yeah.
To the Kings, the Flyers, and the Blues, respectively, right? So, but then you have other guys. Charlie Hodge was in that.
I don't think Gump Worsley went to Minnesota in the expansion draft. I think he was traded.
Right. Gary Smith, Dave Ballon, Jim Roberts, Ed Van Imp, Joe Watson, Kent Douglas. These are all Hall of Famers. There's actually 22 Hall of Famers taken in that expansion draft. How about that?
Oh, name those Hall of Famers again.
Yeah, some of those weren't Hall of Famers.
I don't think Ed Van Imp's a Hall of Famer. Yeah.
Inducted into the Hall of Fame. All right, here I will show you what I'm looking on Wikipedia. I will bring this up and show you. Not that maybe somebody can fix Wikipedia if these are indeed wrong. But Salchuk, everyone with the upward-facing arrow here, you see it says inducted into the Hall of Fame. I know this is really small. I'm trying to make it a little bigger.
Yeah, Jimmy Roberts is not a Hall of Famer.
Yeah,
It's the one with 2 arrows with the
Right.
upward.
Yeah.
No.
So there's
okay,
3.
Yes. Okay. Sorry. Wrong. Yes.
Okay.
There were, I guess, Leon
Boyven.
Leo Boyven. He was okay. So these were, and I think maybe that is it then. But that's still a good number. Sorry, I messed that up.
Yeah. What's interesting about that?
Maybe Bathgate. So here's another one.
Yeah.
What's interesting about that expansion draft was, they had to go. Only 6 teams were feeding, the new 6 teams. But also spoke that they had like huge protected lists back then.
Right.
Yeah, but again, it goes to the point that I say when we expand next time, how the talent pool will get diluted. It wasn't diluted then. That's what that proves.
Right.
But by the way, this whole thing about diluted talent is just absurd.
It's not totally absurd. It will be diluted to a degree. It will.
There's no way. You by taking a 4th liner off everyone's team, it is not going to dilute the talent in the NHL.
Not the first year, but you'll see as things go on, as more teams are drafting, when you have some drafts that aren't as deep as last year, probably 4 or 5 years. It's going to take a few years, but there will be dilution.
Yeah, but one aspect that you have to consider is the fact that with the KHL on the crumble, you're going to have players coming back. You're going to have enough players. You could get a dozen, maybe 20 players.
You'll get some more players from there. You will, but some of them are going to be older too. And so I don't know. I still think 4 or 5 years down the road, you will have dilution because I think as these other teams are now continuing in the draft, and the draft will be longer, and the first round will be longer, there will be less talent to go around some years.
I'm not buying it. It's just not the inclusion of 2 teams and an additional 40 players playing in the league. I think the natural growth of hockey feeds those 40 players. We're not going to see like that. That the level of play is going to fall off. I just don't see that.
Well, you're definitely not going to see a lot of Hall of Famers like this expansion.
You're not going to see Hall of Famers like that expansion. But yeah, no, I agree with Kevin. I do. I think hockey's growth in the U.S. just with all the new U.S. I mean that's an exponential characteristic to it right now.
The best evidence is that is the fact that the number 1 pick in the draft in 2016 will be from Arizona.
Right.
And California now is a regular source of hockey talent. They're expecting Florida to produce NHL players in the next 4 or 5 years. St. Louis has become a hotbed of players. Europe, despite all the dire predictions of the talent to drying up there, continues to produce players. And sooner or later, we're going to start taking players out of other areas of the world. At some point, we're going to end up with Japanese players, and as Eck brought on yesterday, that Korea is starting a program and so forth. So, I think the natural growth would take care of expansion to prevent that.
I think so too. But we'll see. The last thing I wanted to say is I think we need to have some sort of. We need to now have an original 12 thing. Like the original 6 has become amazingly.
No.
Yes, we need an original 12 because I think that. I mean, the original 12 had the biggest impact on the NHL, way bigger than the original 6.
No.
I didn't. No.
No.
Well, I mean, I sort of agree with that a little bit. Like the Philadelphia Flyers and the Pittsburgh Penguins have become sort of, to me, part of the Big 8.
Right.
I know that sounds like an accounting group, but I mean, those are historic franchises to me. As well.
But they weren't there at the beginning, and that's what that's denotes. Eck, how you find out? Go put this up on your Montreal page and have it be a vote and see how it votes and see what.
Yeah, well, I know. I mean, you're absolutely right. That's a wrong place to put it. But yes, I totally agree with you. But I do think, I mean, the Kings now are they feel almost like that kind of a franchise too. I mean, they're different, but they're.
Well, now they do, but there were times that they didn't. Also.
Oh yeah, but I still think
my line of demarcation is the WHA expansion because I mean, when you have the Sabres and the Canucks coming in 1970, the Flames and the Islanders coming in 72, was it the Capitals and the Scouts coming in 74? I mean, the Scouts moved around a lot. But I mean, really, I don't know. I mean, I've never been so tied to the original 6 thing that it became that big of a thing for me.
they weren't the original 6. Correct me if I'm wrong. They weren't around that long as an original 6, right? That was.
Well, no, the original 6 is a misnomer.
Right.
Right, because there were 4 teams basically, right, that went for a long time, and one of those teams.
The Canadians were started in 1917. The Bruins and the Blackhawks and the Rangers in the 1920s, and I think the Red Wings as well, right?
Yep.
Right.
It actually became a good marketing effort. I remember reading about it where it sort of caught on.
It was 25 years the original 6 existed.
Yeah, I mean, that obviously I'm old as the dirt, so I can actually remember when the original 6 hockey, like when I was a kid, there were only 6 teams, and like nobody gave a rat's rear end about the NHL outside of Detroit, and like if you went to Pennsylvania or I'm just trying to think, Ohio or Missouri, like in the 1960s, like nobody cared about the NHL. You wouldn't find it. And I've told the story just recently, and it stuns people. Okay, so I move in 1979 to take a job in Casa Grande, Arizona, and I'm working for a daily newspaper in Casa Grande, Arizona, and I have access to the AP wire. I could not follow the NHL from Casa Grande, Arizona, even though I had access to the.
Wow.
I had to have my girlfriend at the time send me clips from Michigan about the Detroit Red Wings and what was going on.
Right.
To follow that, I couldn't get enough information on the wire, even though I put the newspaper out, our Sunday paper. I put it out on Saturday nights. But
more importantly, what sports did you cover? College football? What else? I mean,
in Arizona?
Yeah.
Oh, when I covered on Friday night, I would cover 8-man Native American high school football.
Okay.
I was a part-time political writer, part-time sports writer. I would cover Arizona State football on Saturday afternoon, and then I'd cover the Phoenix Suns on Saturday night, and then Sunday I would probably write a story on the cotton industry in Arizona. and on Monday I would cover, and this is true, this was actually a weekend that I had. On Monday morning I covered Ted Kennedy's speech to the Native American Association on the subject of water rights.
Water rights.
Wow.
Yeah. So I had an incredible job. I just recently told this story as well, and when I gave the commencement speech at my old high school this summer, talking about all the experiences in my life. And when I got out to Arizona, and the first game that I covered in the 8-man football, which is very exciting, by the way, it's even more exciting than Canadian football.
Huh.
On the Native American reservation, I covered Maricopa High School, and some players wore war paint.
Oh, wow.
And I thought, oh, this is a cool story. And I thought, I'm going to go, and the kids are going to say, well, we do it because when the teams come down from, Phoenix and stuff, that it scares the heebie-jeebies out of them, and, that's why they do it. And I hooked up with a guy who was the captain of the team and interviewed him about it. And, God, I felt so embarrassed that I thought like that, because the guy said no, and he explained the cultural significance of each symbol and what it meant, and about paying tribute to your ancestors and all that. And I'm just feeling just horrendous that I thought that it was simply an intimidation form, kind of like trash talking. And just when the interview was over and I shook his hands, he was walking away and turns around and he says to me, and by the way, the other reason we do it, it scares the snot right out of the other team.
Hey, but if you were out there now, you would have a lot more sports to cover.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, obviously the Coyotes were not there, or I'd have been up there every weekend.
Diamondbacks weren't there, Phoenix Cardinals weren't there. Arizona Cardinals, rather.
Yeah.
None of the teams were there.
Yeah. Well, it was, there was a lot to do. I mean, that was the 70s because, like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar would come in with the Lakers, so, I'd be up there for that. And, college football. I covered the Arizona State basketball team that had 4 guys go to the NBA. Lafayette Lever, Curtin Imphius, Alton Lister, Rodney Scott all played on that Arizona State team that ended up going pretty far in the NCAA. I can't remember. It didn't win the championship.
For football, was Chuck Muncie one of their guys for football?
No, at Arizona State?
No.
No, that was the era of the Malone brothers.
Okay.
And then also they had they weren't related, but Mark Malone was the quarterback.
Mark Malone,
yeah. As well. So and Chuck, I was there when Frank Kush got thrown overboard for striking the lineman on the back of the legs with wooden dollies to check their focus.
Wow. Holy cow.
He wasn't punching somebody on the other team like Woody Hayes. He was hitting the referees.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Good
Sounds like
story.
the Old West.
Good stories. I love it. Well, thanks everybody for watching the Hockey Buzzcast today. And we'll be back in tomorrow. Now, tomorrow we're going to be doing something kind of interesting. We're going to be doing at least part of our, and I think Mike's right, we probably should split this awards thing into 2. I talked to him earlier about this. We'll be doing half of it tomorrow, and I'll send emails to you guys later about which half we'll be doing of the worst awards. Players, basically the anti-NHL awards. So the exact opposite of any award we will try to be handing out. And we'll do some tomorrow, and we'll do some at a different date when we can all 4 of us can be here. But that's so look forward to that tomorrow. It will be kind of a fun negative day here at Hockey Buzz.
Can we talk about why the Sharks are killing us again tomorrow?
We definitely can.
All right.
Again, I think we need to sacrifice somebody to them. Maybe that's what the Indians would do, right?
And the Dolphins.
Yes. Remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey. Talk to you guys soon.